Okay, my friend, let's go to what is usually classed as the marquee game of the weekend, when the two Manchester clubs meet, whether it's at the Etihad or at Old Trafford. Manchester United, Manchester City have usually had one of these teams vying for titles or the big honours. It was 5th versus 13th in a Manchester derby that many thought before the game probably has a little bit more importance to Manchester City in the hope of the Champions League spots. But we didn't get any fireworks, my friend. I have to say, in all honesty, it was a bit of a damp squib. I thought, for me, I think Ruben Amorim will be probably the happier of the two managers. Yeah. Thought there's certain parts of United's game that's starting to look a little bit like he would want it to look in the future. Again, at the top end of the pitch, there's definitely still problems in terms of sharpness. I thought City were quite passive, didn't have a lot of threat. The movements were quite slow, and they got bogged down by the numbers in the middle of the pitch at times.
That's very nice, Robbie Earle. You've been very nice there. Very, very nice. And, do you want to leave it to me to really say what this game was like? And the Manchester derby may be the worst you've ever seen. I'm not sure we're ever going to see a worse Manchester derby than this. I think we know that Man United are going through a difficult moment, trying to find their football. We know that certain players and attacking players haven't been great. So I didn't expect a ton off of Manchester United. But often this game is lit by Man City's quality. Their football's so sharp, so good that Man United have to raise a level to be aggressive, to get in their faces, to stop City's dominance and City creating chances to score goals. That's what's kind of been this game over the last few years. But we had none of it. We had none of it because of what I said about Man United. But most surprisingly, with Man City, Rob, and how pedestrian and slow and unmotivated. Now, I know that they're not going for a title. I know that this all about the FA Cup and getting into the top 5 of the Premier League. But I did expect a little bit more desire, determination to give Man United more problems. So then you had a not really seemingly bothered City against a Man United team that's trying to find its way. It's got a bit of a stronger foundation now. Yeah. Graham Mustoe said in commentary a lot of times they have a 4 across the back and 4 across midfield. They're stronger, a little stronger defensively, but going forward for Man United is painful to watch. So two teams way away from where they were, Rob, and I'll let you get back in after this. Yeah. The camera went to King Eric Cantona a lot of times. Peter Schmeichel was shown up. We know Roy Keane would have been there. Gary Neville. God, blimey. I just wonder what those guys would have been thinking about this as a game. Maybe, I don't know, just as a Manchester derby with all the fire that you normally get in the belly from certainly those players. This had none of it. I was shocked at how tame it was.
Well, it was interesting when you look at City and we looked at the team sheet, and Doku and Savinho went out of the team. Bernardo Silva and Foden were in the
De Bruyne as well, Rob.
Yeah, and then De Bruyne in the middle instead of Jack Grealish. So it was a very different 3 underneath the main striker of Marmoush. And when you play those 3, Rob, it's all about technical ability, football IQ, their passing, their movement. Yet neither of either of them were able to really affect the game. And I don't know if you noticed at the end, Rob, where Pep Guardiola had almost like a coaching session with a number of players. And did you see, I don't know if you saw, just as we were getting to the end of the pictures, that he had a long conversation with Jeremy Doku, who didn't look very happy about something. Now, whether Doku was feeling like he's been sacrificed in the team and he thought he could have played and probably would have bought... the one thing with Jeremy Doku is he runs at people and makes things happen. Savinho on the other side, his pace, he can get to the byline. City didn't have any of that. In De Bruyne playing, I wondered whether Pep had thought, he's just talked about he's going to be leaving the club at the end of the season. There's going to be a big fanfare, quite rightly, for what he's given to this football club. Whether that would be a lift to the players didn't really work, to be honest, mate. And thought De Bruyne really struggled at times to really influence the game in the manner that we've known. My sort of overriding thought with City, Rob, and I know the FA Cup's to come against Forest. And I've got to be honest, if I'm Forest and I'm seeing City today, if they catch them on a day like that, they'll beat them. I'll tell you right now. But the other thing that sort of struck home to me, Rob, across the day, really, for Manchester City, it looked tired. It looked like can't wait for the end of the season. The manager's trying to pump things up. He looks exhausted. Players look a little bit exhausted by it. It's almost like they can't wait for the end of the season now. They've got an FA Cup semi-final. They've got a 5th place to at least guarantee Champions League football. But all of a sudden you look at the table, Newcastle are, 2 points behind with 2 games in hand. All of a sudden City could find themselves in a difficult position.
Yep, they could. It's the worst Man City team, Rob. You think back now, like you got to go back quite a long way, haven't you? Like even the Mancini cities were stronger and more exciting and more dynamic. It really has fallen off a cliff a little bit. And I actually thought over the last few weeks with no European football, obviously getting knocked out, that they would find their feet again and finish the season strongly. It doesn't look like they are. It has looked tired for a long period of time. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of changes in the summer. And I heard you guys talk in the studio about, how long it might take. I think there's going to be a lot of players coming in. We talked about it, Robin, in midweek on the podcast. There is going to be a big transition there. And you've got O'Reilly, you've got Rico Lewis, you've got Marmoush, you've got Doku, you've got Savinho. You've got some Nico Gonzalez in midfield. You have got some players that are the right age. Oscar Bob's to come back, Rob. I mean, it takes a little bit of envisaging, but I think it's going to look very different at the start of next season. And like you said, it might take a little bit of time for that new group to be as good as what we've seen in the past. But it's just needed. I think it's painfully obvious, just in today's football, and the cutting edge, Rob, like you said, when you got Bernardo Silva, Phil Foden, Kevin De Bruyne in an attacking spot, and they did nothing. There was nothing going forward. Did you even show a highlight? Was there any highlights of them scoring? So that it was, you add on to that Manchester United's sort of struggles a little bit and the way they're trying to find their form. It just 0-0. It's like, wow. It was. I'm sure the UK ex-Man United pundits will be getting
that one.
They'll be getting thrown right into it. Of course, we have Gary Neville in the studio next weekend,
Yeah,
so
it'll be
I'll be
interesting.
asking him. I'll be asking him about that.
What they thought. I think the thing, you talked about, a Cantona who's a unique individual, a Schmeichel, massive personality, Roy Keane, Gary Neville. When you look at this team, forget the footballers, but just the personalities are so much different, and are going to be more demanding of themselves than the teammates. You see Roy Keane now, where he's a pundit, it's almost like he's still captain of Manchester United, and he's urging people on. That's also part of what Ruben Amorim's going to have to develop at this club, Rob, and it might not be in that style of what Sir Alex did and back in the day, because football and people have changed. But they're all going to have to find their way of motivating each other. It's not just the football. They're going to have to find a way of, getting through difficult moments. And, he stands alone in this for me. Bruno Fernandes continues to be the standard bearer for this football club. Majority of the good things that go, he's somewhere involved in them. Yeah,
and it's hard to sort of have... Roy Keane is like a beacon of, what every football club would want of a central midfield player who's a captain. Of course, there was one equally as good as Roy Keane before him in Brian Robson that was an incredible leader and my old manager in the Premier League with Middlesbrough. So that's not easy to come by. I mean, Man City, they've won 4 titles on the trot, Rob.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know whether there's a Roy Keane type of player there. There's plenty of players with plenty of experience, and your Rodri's in midfield that lead by example a little bit. But I don't know. That's way off. That's the final icing, Rob. If Man United can get a team that's competitive enough to be close to winning something, then that sort of character will be really, really, really important.
Could I just steer you to somewhere in the game, mate? That I just wanted and had a conversation with Tim, and it was in the forward line. Højlund started. Things aren't happening for him at the moment. Zirkzee came on, I think he's build-up play and link-up play is probably better than Højlund, but he lacks this speed and intensity that's going to trouble top defenders. But I was asked today about the United front line, and I so it wasn't like a pick on Alejandro Garnacho, Rob, but I've been slightly disappointed in him of recent times. Now, young talent, exceptional ability, has got all the tools you'd really want from a player playing in that position as a 10, coming from wide. He's got to get the goals. We've seen some brilliant moments, the overhead kick, the bending shots. He's got to get back to doing some basics, Rob, to learning his trade and developing. his development to me feels like it's got a bit stunted. And I know the team aren't playing particularly well, but I thought they got him in some good areas today, and I thought he disappointed with his delivery or his execution.
No, I agree with you. I thought he was poor today. I thought he was really poor in certain situations where you're right, where you expect with his ability. And it wasn't that he wasn't in his favourite spots. He got into some good positions.
Yeah.
You know, he's allowed to play a little wider on the left-hand side, or I think he switched over to the other side later in the game. But you're right. I mean, the front line. Now, part of me wants to be like you, kind of pointing the finger at Garnacho a little bit, but I do also think about the team as how it attacks in general. And the wing backs are okay. Dorgu's looked all right. I just don't know whether those front players, Rob, when you look at this team and you're going forward, you've got two central midfield players, right, which are mostly going to be behind the ball, serving. You've got wing backs that will, of course, are trying to get forward, but won't always be out and out wingers constantly attacking. And you just got three front players that look a little on their own at times. And I'm sorry, but Rasmus Højlund, I don't know, man. I know you lost patience with him a while ago, Rob, didn't you?
Yeah, just with his body language, his actions, Rob, and his.
I don't know what he does, mate. And I know that you had a chat about who should stay and who should go. I mean, I know he's still young, but my goodness, there's been a lot of opportunities. And again, maybe it's the same thing that the setup at the moment. They aren't the best attacking team to stretch defenders for him to get more chances. You know, but Xerxes actually, out of all of them, looks the kind of the brightest and that might do something that unlocks a little something. But Garnacho, I mean, that's kind of if Garnacho's not playing well, you got Rasmus Højlund up front. You know, and Bruno, of course, plays up there. It's not enough, and that's the biggest concern now. Now he's got his foundation a little better with the shape. And he knows he can rely on two banks, a bank of five, a bank of four, when things are difficult and teams possess the ball really well, which City do generally. He's got the first port call is the attack now, isn't it, for the summer, and try and bring somebody in to give a little bit more quality in those areas. I mean, on the other side of things, Marcus Rashford, people might be saying, well, he's doing great at Villa, but this is a really good example of a player playing in a good team. You know, it's so easier to play in a really grooved, a really good football team that dominates and is exciting, and the fans are behind him 100%, and he's enjoying that more than the
How does that work, though, Rob? Let's just say that, because it was something I thought about today in Rashford. I know we've touched on, you know, whether it's a long-term Rashford or we've just seen a short snatch of what he can be like. And we all know he's got talent. We all know he's pacey and got lovely football ability, but we don't see it on a regular enough basis, or haven't seen it. But let's just say we get to the end of the season, Rob, and Aston Villa decide that they quite like to inquire about it, and I think the fee's been set as around 40. But Manchester United actually go, can Manchester United drag him back and say, actually, you're our player, you've been on loan, but now you're going to play for us?
I don't see it.
No, I'm not saying, but I'm not saying that it will happen, and I'm not saying that it's a right decision. But is that something? That is an option for United, isn't it? They don't have to sell him, do they? Don't have to sell him, do they?
No. There's not an obligation to buy.
That's what. So
I think it's just an option.
An option. So if you want him at the end of this loan period, the 40 million is a fee, and it would trigger. If you don't want him, listen, he might end up going out on loan somewhere else, or somebody else being interested. Who knows? I just wasn't sure from Manchester United's point of view whether they'd lost control. So in some respect, they've still got a certain amount of control of Marcus Rashford.
Yeah, I think so, Rob. I mean, he's on a huge contract.
Yeah.
No, so the player's benefiting, and the football club benefits from the length of the contract. He's still got a series of years, I believe, on the contract.
He's on 300 grand a week, probably another 3 years.
So I think they still, it's not an obligation. Sometimes it's a loan, a straight loan. Sometimes it's a loan with an option to buy, which is this, and sometimes it's a loan with an obligation to buy, which means you're really supposed to buy. Though what's the one recent? The Jadon Sancho is sort of like there was an obligation, but you can kind of opt out of it and pay a fee.
Loan fee or something.
So it gets a bit complicated, but I just don't see. I know he's playing better. I don't see him returning.
No. I mean, probably too much has gone on between the two, and
I think so.
Blood or whatever.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Lowe, and as we head towards the end of an exciting Premier League season, make sure you like and subscribe on the NBC Sports YouTube channel for more content like this.